Shalom, my friends. Now we are going to discuss a few words, a few thoughts of Torah regarding Parashat Behar, which is the parasha of this coming Shabbat, outside the land of Israel, of course. Because this coming Shabbat, in Israel we read Parashat Bechukotai. So now we will discuss Parashat Behar. Parashat Behar begins with the words Ki tavo'u el haaretz asher ani noten lachem. Before God commands us to observe the law of Shemitah, the sabbatical year, but this verse begins by saying, when you come to the land which I am giving you, asher ani noten lachem. So this reminds us of something. We know very well that our enemies, under pretext of history or pretext of religion, they pretend to say that the land of Israel is not ours. We know how futile this is, a very, very wrong pretension. Because God said so many times in the Bible, in the Torah, that He gave us the land of Israel. However, we have to hold it 1 second. The land of Israel was indeed given to us, as it says very clearly so many times in the Torah. But it says, Asher ani noten lachem, that I am giving you, because the verb noten means giving. It is derived from the word matana, noten matana, which means a gift. But it's not like any other gift, because noten, you derive from it also the word tenai. See, in noten you have taf nun, and in tenai you have taf nun. Tenai is condition, which means Hashem said, I'm giving you this land which is mine, as it says specifically in this week's parasha, in Behar, Ki li kol haaretz. Hashem says, all the lands are mine. But He says that I am giving you. But it has also the meaning of condition. If you observe my mitzvot, my commandments, and you follow the rules of my Torah, then the land is yours forever. If not, there will be times. In the beginning it's yours. You don't follow my Torah, then you will have to leave this land. And this land will either remain in total desert, or it will be given to others, or others will come and conquer it. Our history is quite clear about it. Yoshua bin Nun was the first one who entered the land of Israel with all the people of Israel. Moses was buried before he entered the land of Israel. And the land of Israel for hundreds and hundreds of years was ours. But little by little, at the time of the first temple, when it was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, then the land was not ours anymore, even though a few more, maybe a few more hundreds of years. First, the Jewish people went to exile to Babylon. For 70 years, the Jewish people were in exile. However, when the time came, in the time of the story of Mordechai and Esther, so King Koresh, which is apparently, according to our tradition, the son of Esther that she got from her husband, King Ahasuerus, the king of Persia, we returned to the land of Israel. Not all of them, but many, about 50,000 of them, under the leadership of Ezra Sofer, as well as Nehemiah, as well as Zerubbabel and Yehotzadak. 50,000 of them went back to the land of Israel and started the rebuilding of Bet HaMikdash. And then the Jewish people came back, little by little, they came back to the land of Israel until, hundreds of years, about 420 years later, again the destruction of the second temple by Rome, the Romans. And now the exile was very much extensive up to almost today, until we came back to the land of Israel, thank God, in 1948. And coming back is going on again and again. So we have seen it, that God has given us the land of Israel, but at the same time it is on condition. Now again, of course, thank God, there is now actually there is much more Torah than ever before, and more yeshivot and more, but there are also many Jews. It's possible the majority of the Jewish people today is not very much in total observance, right? So who knows? But we hope that this was the last exile, and we will not go back again to exile. But our enemies, the Arabs, are fighting us for this land. The non-Jewish world, like Christianity pretends to say, that this land, we are not meritorious for this land, and that's why God took it away from us. But that we don't believe. And when the Messiah will come, and right now the return of the Jewish people is proving the world that the world has been wrong for 2,000 years. The land is still ours because now God gave it to us. There is one thing that was very astonishing, that during all these years that Jews were not in the land of Israel, the land of Israel did not give much of its fruits. And let's not even talk about the fruits that used to be in the land of Israel in the time when the Jewish people was there. 2,000 years ago, when we call this land Eretz Zavat Chalav Udvash, the land of milk and honey. But nevertheless, after the destruction and after the exile, no one, there were Arabs who came here, and there were a few Jews also who came to the land of Israel, but the land of Israel was very dry, except a few olive trees and some other things, but nothing to compare with the past. But now that the Jewish people is back, it's already 70 years, thank God, that we are back in the land of Israel, and go to the markets and see how the prophecy has come true, that the fruits are in such an abundance that is practically unbelievable. And of course the rest is known to everyone, how the Jewish people is becoming more and more successful, thank God. So let's hope that little by little our brothers, secular Jews, will understand that they have to start keeping Shabbat, because Shabbat is so important for this land. Because you have to understand that this coming parasha is talking about Shemitah. On the 7th year, the land is free from any work. You cannot work the land, you cannot plow, you cannot you cannot harvest, you cannot do anything on the 7th year, which we call the sabbatical year. Also, we're talking in this parasha about the Yovel, which is about 49 years have to pass, but not anymore today. But since the time of the first Bet HaMikdash, we have no more the commandment of Yovel. It will come back when the Messiah will come and the Bet Mikdash will be rebuilt. But in the old time, at the time of the first temple, there, of course, we went by the law of the Yovel. The Yovel means that, again, the land is not to be worked, and at the same time, anyone who had any slaves, he has to free them, and freedom is practically given to everyone. Even when it comes to money, usually if you give some loans to people, you have no right to ask for it on the sabbatical year. Of course, it's always better to give back what you owe, but on the sabbatical year, apparently, you have no right to ask for it. That used to be a long time ago, and then Hillel came, and he had an arrangement for that, because people stopped to give loans at the time. So he gave us what we call prosbol, which now it's possible to do even though you are fulfilling the mitzvah of Shmitat Ksafim on the sabbatical year. Also you fulfill the mitzvah of not asking for your loans that you gave, but through the Beddin it's possible to get it back. But all these come to tell us what? What is the meaning of this mitzvah? Apparently Rashi says in the very beginning of this Torah, שש שנים תזרע שדך, the Torah says, שש שנים תזרע שדך, for 6 years you have the right to plow the land, to sow the land, and to harvest, of course, for 6 years. But on the 7th year, that's it. Nobody is touching that land. It's totally freedom for everyone to enter and take whatever he wants. But to understand what is the meaning of this, some people pretend to say that, of course, the land needs 1 year of rest. If the land rests for 1 year, then it will be very healthy for it. This is as wrong as can be. That's not what it means. It's possible that it's correct, but that's not the reason for which the Torah is telling me such a commandment. It says in the verse, "V'shaveta haaretz Shabbat Lashem," in this parasha, that the land should be at rest for God. The Baal HaMikdavar, the Netziv, the great commentators on the Torah, he writes in his commentary that we don't work the land on the 7th year because we wanted to rest, but only because God said so. And Rashi says in the very beginning of the Torah that this mitzvah of Shemitah is in fact showing us that all the as all the mitzvot, all the commandments were given at the mountain of Sinai, this mitzvah of Shemitah also was given on Sinai. That's why it begins, this parasha begins, Behar Sinai lemor. At the mountain of Sinai, God said, when we come to the land of Canaan, then you have to keep the law of the sabbatical year. Why is it to teach us? That the Shemitah now is teaching us that all the commandments are not because there is a reason. There might, of course, we can always find a reason. We can make up a reason. Why not? As long as it is logical. But never permit yourself to think that this is the ultimate reason. The ultimate reason belongs only to God Himself, and only God knows what is the real meaning of every mitzvah. That's why we read in the book of the king of the book of the fathers, Veheve zahir b'mitzvah kalla kevachamura. You have to be careful to observe a heavy mitzvah and a light mitzvah. Don't distinguish one from the other. In other words, you have to do both of them. Why? Because you really don't know the reward that is given for any mitzvah. Which means you don't know also the reason that hides behind every commandment. So what does it mean? In the 10 Commandments it says, Lo tirtzach, do not kill, or Lo tignov, do not steal. Don't we know that we don't need the 10 Commandments for that. But God wanted us to put it there in the 10 Commandments to teach us that the reason why I want you not to kill and not to steal, etc., is only because I am the one who is asking you to do so. You are my servants, you are my children. As a child does what his father wants, and many times he doesn't even have to ask why. The same thing also, of course, the servant. The servant does this, obviously. He does what his master tells him. Since the Torah calls us, the Jewish people, Ki li b'nei Israel avadim. We read this in this actual parasha that the Jewish people at large will read this coming Shabbat, Parashat Behar Sinai. We read that Hashem calls us His servants. In other places He calls us Banim atem l'Hashem Elokechem. You are my children. Of course, our sages say when you do the will of God, you are considered His children. Or you could you are considered also His servants. But to be considered His children is even better. is a higher level. But both of them, in a certain sense, of course, it means the same thing. So we understand that V'shabeta ha'aretz Shabbat Lashem. This pertains to God. Don't look too much into why, because you are liable to make a mistake, even though you are allowed to find the logical reason behind every commandment. Just don't believe that this is the ultimate one. The ultimate reason remains within God's mind Himself. Now, of course, we have to realize, between Pesach and Shavuot, we read the Pirkei Avot, right? How do we always start? Every chapter starts with the words, Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba. After I said about the Shemitah, it looks like nothing belongs to us. We own nothing. Because here comes the 7th year and teaches us that you own nothing. You have a slave. In the old time they used to have slaves. That's a possession. That's a property. It's not anymore yours. On the sabbatical, it's not yours. Why? It belongs to God. So practically in this world, nothing is ours. And logic says so. How much? Let's say you have everything. But for how long? For a few years, and then you give it back. And you go, of course, you die. You go into the grave. Not even the grave is ours. You want to know why? There is a small story about an individual who was very rich, but he never gave any charity. Very distasteful, right? He's rich, but he doesn't give any charity. At the same time, he was a sinner because he used to lend with interest, which is totally forbidden by the Torah. And the Talmud tells us that anyone who lends money with interest to the Jew, of course, to his fellow Jew, then he will not get up for the resurrection of the dead. So there was this individual who was rich, but he never gave charity. At the same time, he occupied himself by lending to people money in exchange for a good return, for good interest. One day he passed away. So, like everyone, his son went to buy a grave for his father. The Chevra Kadisha, those who are in charge of selling graves, they asked him an astronomical price for a grave. The son protested. Why? Why do I have to pay 10 times more than anybody else? There was a great rabbi there, and he said, the organization Chevra Kadisha is correct. Your father will not get up from his grave, so he occupies his grave forever, so that his grave, therefore, he has to pay a lot of money for it. But everyone else who will be revived after, when God decides so, when at the time of resurrection, in accordance with our tradition and belief, as we say every day, Baruch Atah Hashem Mechayeh HaMetim, we have a special benediction that we say, blessed be the Almighty, the reviver of the dead, right? So since he will not be revived, he will always occupy it. An eternal occupation costs a lot of money, whereas everyone else will rise from his grave, and therefore he occupied his grave only temporary. For that he doesn't pay that much, right? So we understand that this world is not ours at all. Whatever we have does not last. We cannot do much about it. We leave everything behind, and that's it. Our sages said in Mishle Chachamim, they say, you can say that it's yours only whatever you succeeded to spend in this life. And then what you got from it is not yours also, because it's only temporary. You leave everything behind. Last week, about a week ago, yes, on Wednesday night, There was a light earthquake in Jerusalem. I was very deep into my studies, and suddenly I felt my table moving. Immediately I understood this is an earthquake. Not very strong, but strong enough to produce some kind of fear. We came out from the rooms, my wife also, my daughter, and we were they scared. Many people did not hear, did not feel, but we felt because we are higher than many. Those who are high, they feel more. At that time, something unbelievable happened to me. All my ideas changed suddenly. I realized that nothing belongs to us. You can amass a fortune. You can build a building and everything, and you think it's yours. And then if God wants, He can destroy everything and you have nothing. You're left with nothing. And that's exactly the thought that provided me with what I am telling you now. Why is it that the Torah says, V'shaveta ha'aretz Shabbat Lashem? That the reason why we have to observe the law of the sabbatical year, because it belongs to God. This Shabbat, the rest of this Shabbat, the sabbatical year, is the will of God. That's what He wants. Like with any other mitzvah. Amazing. Another story. There was another guy who came, a rich man from America, and he came to visit the Chafetz Chaim alav shalom in his yeshiva in Radin. Chafetz Chaim, known, famous all over the world as the greatest righteous man in the world at his time, about maybe 85 or 90 years ago, maybe 100 years ago. So he came to visit him, and he found him to be in a room quite poor, hardly any furniture, table, nothing special, very poor chairs, and nothing else, just books, and that's all. So the rich man turned to the Chafetz Chaim. He said, Rabbi, you are a great man, famous all over the world. You need to have something beautiful. You need to live in luxury. Where is your furniture? The Chafetz Chaim, rather than answering him directly, he asked him a question. And where is your furniture, sir? The rich man said, Rabbi, come on. I just came from America. I'm just traveling back and forth. All I have with me is a valise. That's all, a luggage. The rabbi said, well, it's exactly like me. You are just passing by. I am also only passing by. The Talmud says in Masechet Moed Katan on page 10, and there it says, Hai alma oshpiza. This world is a hotel only. Like a hotel. Not even a hotel, a motel. Hahu alma, but the world to come. Hu beta, that's your house, that's your home. Our home is the world to come. Believe it or not. Those who don't believe in it anyway, they'll find these words ridiculous. But those who believe in it, they know. Their soul tells them it's impossible to say that there is no another world. It's like saying there is no God. If you say there is a God, then you have to believe that there is another world. It's in the beginning of the Torah, it says, Bereshit bara Elokim. In the beginning, God created. There is God. If there is God, there is a world to come. What do you think so? God does not build something that is not eternal. Our body is not eternal, but the human being, his soul, which is alive forever and ever, that's something that is eternal. What is the soul, you could ask? Well, the Zohar says, it has a face, it has everything that we have, only it's spiritual. How else would you recognize, as they say in the Zohar, that when one passes away, The first thing that he sees is his parents, his friends, those who perished before him. How will he recognize them if he is only just a puff of smoke? No, the soul has a body and everything. Only it is spiritual. When he sees his parents, he recognizes them, and they recognize him. So there is a world to come. And that's why we always say before we begin the reading of the chapter, any chapter of the book of the fathers, we begin by saying, Kol Israel yesh lahem chelek le'olam haba. All the people of Israel, they do have a share in the world to come. But I must add that there is another expression that is very famous in the Talmud. Ben olam haba, the son of the world to come. Like it says, for example, Kol hashone halachot bechol yom, anyone who studies the laws every day, the Jewish law every day, is a son of olam haba, of the world to come. What's the difference between having a share in the world to come and being a son of the world to come? The difference is this. All Jews, without exception, the wicked as well as the righteous, all of them have a share in the world to come. The righteous gets it immediately after he dies. The wicked will have to wait until he cleans up, right? Until he goes to his laundry, which could be hell, could be reincarnation, depending on how serious were his sins. Could be even worse. But at the end, he will come back to the world to come and regain his share. But to be the son of olam haba is a person who always thinks about olam haba, who discusses olam haba all the time, who teaches about olam haba, who gives a speech about olam haba, the world to come, all the time. And he believes so much in it, and he does what is proper in order to merit the world to come. That's called Ben Olam Haba. So when you study the Jewish law, that means by studying the Jewish law, Kol hashone halachot, our sages said that even 2 laws every day, but that you will be able to remember, right? If you remember the Jewish law, you will do it. If you do the laws, that means you belong to Olam Haba. You merit the world to come, therefore you belong to it. So that's what we learn from this world. We learn from this world that we have nothing. All we have, we leave it behind. Why? Because it is in our home that we have everything. And only there we will understand perfectly what we say. Because how can we pretend to understand everything that goes on in the spiritual world when we are not spiritual? What we leave behind here is our body. Our body is only a clothing. That's what the Chafetz Chaim says also. We mentioned him. That the guf, the body of the human being, is only a cover. The real human being is his spiritual soul. At the time of death, the soul departs the body. Our sages said when she sees the divine presence, immediately she gets the permission to get out from the body and to go directly to that direction, the divine presence. She sees God. And then the body is left without a soul. It has the same eyes, same ears, same mouth, same everything. But they don't move, they don't have any reaction, nothing. It is just plain clothing that goes to the grave. Nevertheless, we owe it respect. That's the reason why when we bury someone, we stay until we cover completely the grave, then we are allowed to leave. Out of respect for that which has been a hotel for us, which has hosted us. What's us? The soul, not the body. The body remains just as a body. This is a clothing. You know, Adam, according to the Kabbalists, the first Adam and Chava, before they committed the sin of eating from the tree of knowledge, they were vayedau ki erumim. They didn't have any clothing, which means they didn't have any body. They had only the soul, with its form, the most beautiful sight you could ever see, if you can see it. But we cannot see anything of this kind. Why? Because we are not spiritual. We are material. And therefore we belong to the earth as long as we have this body. When the body is finished, you bury it, and now you are free. Free to go to the direction where you will have to give the account for everything that you have committed. Why? So that you can regain your share. It's your share. Might remain vacant for a long time until you gain it. Or it's possible that it might be given, your share might be given to someone else, if you are wicked enough. If you spoke all your life Lashon Hara and you did not repent, it's very possible. Our sages say it's possible that whatever you did in Lashon Hara, in evil gossip, might cause the guy about whom you were talking, that your share will go to him. Anyway, everything is possible to remedy by repenting and asking forgiveness. No question about it. But finally, that's the only thing that we have. Olam haba. Yesh lachem chelik leolam haba. Kol Yisrael yesh lahem. They have, by right, the Jewish people has a share in the world to come. You must insist on the world to come. You must not feel that it's only a belief that means nothing. That would be a very big and costly error. By the way, our wives have the power to influence their husbands to believe so and to cling to the belief of Olam Haba, of the world to come. Let me tell you a little story that happened about 200 years ago. In the time of the great tzaddik, a great Rebbe of Hasidic Rebbe, is known as the Rebbe of Apta, the righteous man of Apt. And he had many Hasidim, and many Hasidic followers. One of his followers, one of the closest, was very rich, but then unfortunately he became poor. He came to him, Rebbe, nobody knows that I am very poor now, I have nothing left. The rabbi said, you are poor? Oh my God, what happened? He said, he made bad business, he lost everything. And now he has 2 or 3 daughters to marry, but he doesn't have any money with which to marry them. What am I going to do? And the rabbi told him, I'm so sorry to hear that. Well, let me see if I can help. How much money do you have left? He said, oh Rabbi, not much, nothing. All I have is maybe $100. He said, rubles. Oh, that's what you have? So the rabbi says, okay, take this money. And from today, go from one village to another. And as soon as you have the possibility, as soon as you have the opportunity to buy any merchandise for this money that you have, buy it. And the rest is up to God. We'll see. The Chassid did not ask any questions. Immediately he went out, he said, thank you, Rabbi, bye-bye. He took his money, the $100 that he had, and he went from one place to another. It's very difficult to find any merchandise that can produce something with only such a small amount of money. He arrived to a motel at night, which is usually frequented by Jews who are wayfarers and merchants. And they spend the night there. He has no money to pay for his room, so he asked to sit near the furnace, was cold, and that's all. He would sit somewhere and cover himself and be in a corner without bothering anybody. While the place is full of Jews around tables and having a good time. They laugh, they drink, they eat, everything. The owner of that motel was a woman, a Jewish woman. And her husband was a real empty guy, nothing to offer. But he was playing with all the Jews there. And he drank a little, and suddenly he noticed the Chassid sitting there in the corner. So he said, let me go and have some good time at his... let me have some good time about him. And he goes directly to him. Sir, you're a Chassid, what do you do here? He said, I am a merchant. The Chassid said, I am a merchant. Oh, you have merchandise? How much money do you have? He said, I have $100, that's all. And the man exploded in laughs. That's all you have? You're crazy. What can you buy for $100? And he started to laugh and laugh and laugh. He said, how can you do that? How can you? What can you get? So the Chassid said, I don't care. The Rebbe told me that the first merchandise that comes to me, I'll pay for it $100, and that's all. And that's all. I'm waiting for that opportunity. The man said, oh, I have here a great opportunity to have a good laugh at his expense. He said, I have for you a good merchandise for $100. If you give me $100 that you have, I will sell you my share in the world to come. Right? All right? The Chassid said, sure, immediately. Here is a document, sign please. You give me your share in the world to come, and here is your $100. The man took the $100, he signed the paper, and he came back to all the people there, and he said to them, you understand, here is what I did. And all of them, empty people, they started to laugh. Suddenly the woman who was in the kitchen, she came out. She wanted to find out why everybody is laughing. And she stood there and she said, why are you laughing? What's the matter? Why is it my husband is behaving like crazy? I know him, he's crazy, but why is he laughing so much?